On this episode of Cinema Disaster, since it's almost Christmas time, we're going to be talking about the 1984 film Gremlins. I know everybody's seen this film, and there's much debate over whether or not this is a Christmas film. But whichever way you want to look at it, it's a film that takes place during Christmas time. So I guess it's up to you to decide. It was written by Chris Columbus, who also wrote The Goonies. He was also the director of Adventures in Babysitting, as well as the first two installments of the Harry Potter series. It was directed by Joe Dante, who also did The Howling, Inner Space, The Burbs, and a really underrated film called Matinee, which came out in the early 90s, which is like a throwback to the old like 50s films and things like that. Gremlins itself is actually a throwback to the old monster invasion films. The directing job was originally, I guess they thought about giving it to Tim Burton, but at that time he had only done a short film. So Steven Spielberg, who was the executive producer on this film, decided that he would rather go with Dante because he was, I guess, more established at that time. Tim Burton went on to do Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which is another classic film. Steven Spielberg, is the director from Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T. He wrote Poltergeist. So the plot of Gremlins, I'm sure everyone knows, but I'm just going to run over it briefly in case there are some people out there that has never seen it. It starts off with Hoyt Axton, who plays Billy's dad. He goes to this shop where he finds a mogwai, which is some sort of like creature or animal. The shop is run by Mr. Wing, who is played by Kai Luke, who was a character actor, or a veteran actor, rather, who had been acting since the early 30s. He tells Hoyt Axton's character that the mogwai is not for sale. He's not ready for that type of responsibility. The grandson of Mr. Wing tells Hoyt Axton's character that his grandfather is crazy and they need the money. So he'll sneak the mogwai out to him on the front porch. So Billy's dad gives him $100 for it, and he brings it home to Billy, who's played by Zach Galligan. He brings it home to him as a Christmas gift. Well, there's 3 rules that you have to follow, and that's keep him out of sunlight because that'll kill him. Keep him out of light, period. Never feed him after midnight, and don't get him wet. Well, obviously, they get wet. The mogwai's name is Gizmo, obviously, and when they get wet, they multiply, and they turn into these. If they eat after midnight, they turn into these like pods or like these cocoons. It's almost like what a butterfly would do. There's a metamorphosis, and when they come out as like these monsters that are like gremlins, or what they're called is gremlins. I'm not sure necessarily if the gremlins are evil, but they're very mischievous, and they end up overrunning the town, and the whole town goes into like chaos. They end up eating after midnight because they trick Billy by cutting the clock cord so he doesn't know what time it is. There's a lot of really great scenes in this film. There's one where this gremlin hides in the Christmas tree and attacks Billy's mom. So it looks like a Christmas tree is attacking this lady. There's also a scene where she throws a gremlin in the microwave and it explodes. She puts one in a blender and like chops it up. She stabs one to death. There's a lot of violence in this film. Another great scene is where these gremlins are attacking Santa Claus, or it's a guy dressed as Santa, and the cops are sitting there watching him, and they don't even help the guy. There's another great scene with Corey Feldman where all the gremlins are sort of like hanging on the power lines outside of his house, and he's shooting them down with like with a slingshot. Like I said, this film has a very very dark quality to it. Not just with the horror aspects, but also with the comedic aspects. Lots of dark humor. Parents complained when this film came out because they said that it was, it was rated PG because at that time there was no such thing as a PG-13 film. It was actually because of this movie that their PG-13 rating got introduced. Steven Spielberg had currently got a PG on the movie Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and then this one, and he felt as though there needed to be some sort of like in between rating, because rated R was obviously 17 or above, and then PG was parental guidance, and parents felt that this was too scary, too gory, too disturbing for a PG rating. So he took it to the Motion Picture Association of America, and he ended up getting the creation of what PG-13 became. And the first movie to ever be released as PG-13 was Red Dawn. Anyway, but, parents complained a lot about this film because they kind of misunderstood it as being a children's film, which most certainly is not. It's definitely, it's horror mixed with like dark comedy. So there's lots of scenes, the scenes that play up for the horror, they really play up for horror. And then the scenes that are more comedic play up the comedy. And it's like a perfect blend. Joe Dante did it again with The Burbs, and it worked perfectly. And it was at that time that there were movies that were doing that. Like Ghostbusters had came out that same year and kind of blended the same elements. But the film was actually originally going to be much darker than what it was, because in the original script, the Gremlins ate Billy's dog, as well as chopped Billy's mom's head off and threw it down the stairs. And Billy's mom being played by Frances Lee McCain. The character for Billy was originally offered to Emilio Estevez and Judd Nelson, but it ended up going to Zach Galligan because he had such good chemistry with Phoebe Cates' character, which is Billy's girlfriend in the film. Phoebe Cates' casting was also controversial at the time because she had done Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where she had the nude scene that Judge Reinhold's character beats off to or whatever, and but she ended up getting the role. The film also stars Corey Feldman, Judge Reinhold again. Howie Mandel did the voice of Gizmo. Michael Wilson, as from who played Jones in the Police Academy series, did some of the voices for the Gremlins. And Frank Welker, who was known as the voice of Fred on the original Scooby-Doo series, did the voice of Stripe, which is the main gremlin in the film. It also stars Dick Miller, which is a character, like I've said in past episodes, that Joe Dante uses in every one of his films. And there's a speech that Dick Miller's character gives in this movie where he talks about gremlins terrorizing planes and causing deaths in World War II. And this is actually based on a real legend, I guess. Back during World War II, the soldiers would blame gremlins for causing plane malfunctions and things like that. So this movie partially was based on that legend, as well as a Roald Dahl book from 1943, which was called Gremlins, which kind of told the same story of the World War II gremlins. Roald Dahl, as you know, did the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which was made into a film with Gene Wilder, which you know is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Chuck Jones from the Looney Tunes, one of the Looney Tunes animators, and he makes a cameo in this film. The whole film is really sort of like an homage to the inspirations of the filmmakers, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Forbidden Planet, The Time Machine, and then, like I said, all the old monster invasion films. Polly Holliday, who was actually known as Flo from the TV show Alice, she plays Mrs. Deagle, who is kind of like she's definitely an antagonist to the film. She's like this mean old lady who she wants to kill Billy's dog, and she's just really grumpy and mean-spirited. She reminds me a lot of Margaret Hamilton's character in The Wizard of Oz, which played Mrs. Gulch and the Wicked Witch, but she reminds me of Mrs. Gulch, and I don't know if this was like an intentional homage to The Wizard of Oz, or if it was coincidental. But this is another film, like we talked about in the last movie with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, being like this huge marketing success with video games and toys and stuff. Gremlins did the same thing, man. There was video game after video game, tons of toys, posters, stickers, cereal. It was a huge film, and another thing about it was the town that they filmed it in, which is actually a Hollywood backlot. It's the same town that they filmed Back to the Future in, which they used for Hill Valley. Also, in the very first Twilight Zone episode called "Where Is Everybody?", that is also the same place. So the same town in that episode is the same town as this. But once again, yeah, Gremlins. I think that it's a perfect film. It spawned the sequel, Gremlins 2: The New Batch, which took a much sort of light-hearted tone in this film. It's a lot less dark, and sort of makes fun of a lot of the elements in this movie. And there's tons of cameos in it, too. But once again, is it a Christmas movie? Is it not? I guess you need to decide. And since it is Christmas time, and it is the time for giving, I'm asking all of my viewers to please consider donating to a cause that I truly believe in, which is helping animals. And there is a group called the Goats of Anarchy who not only help, they do a lot of animal rescues. It's not just goats, it's animals of all kinds. And they're located in New Jersey, and they rescue and rehabilitate abused and neglected animals, and give them basically a new chance at life, at life that they deserve. And I believe that that all life is important. So, although I am a fan of death and destruction on film, I'm not a fan of it in real life. And I believe that all life is important. And if you want to donate to the Goats of Anarchy, you can go to the website, www.goatsofanarchy.com. You can do PayPal, which is thegoatsofanarchy@gmail.com. You can pay through Vimo, which is Leanne-Lorcella. It's all tax deductible. It's a nonprofit organization. I'm going to list the links below, and definitely consider donating to that and making a difference in the world. And in the meantime, check out Gremlins and keep watching.